It appears Utah will have their QB1 available when they play TCU next Saturday night. Utes play Arizona State this evening. Can TCU use this bye week to get some things accomplished? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, also on your favorite podcast platform. Want to give a quick update. I mentioned this in the YouTube comments a couple days ago. One of our frequent listeners, YouTube watchers, Richard Berry, he's actually been on the show before. He and his family, they were in the path of Hurricane Milton down there in Florida. And he texted me yesterday and said they were doing okay. Not exactly sure everything that happened with his house. The neighbors told him it looked like things were fine. And then he was actually at the plant where he works trying to get things back up and running. So really happy that him and his family are doing well. And if anybody else was in the path of that storm over the last few days, I hope you're okay. I know a couple of my friends from my TCU days, I noticed they marked themselves safe. So hopefully, I know there's a lot of damage, some lost lives with the tornadoes before the storm, but hopefully everybody's doing all right. And I appreciate you guys tuning in or watching wherever it is and however you're doing that today. But moving on as seamless as we can to TCU Athletics. It's Friday on the bye week. There's no football tomorrow, which the team's struggling so much. A lot of you might be excited about that. I don't know. I'm kind of bummed. I just even when they're playing poorly, I do love game day. I look forward to it. And as rough as that Houston game was, I'm not a sunshine pumper. I'm not going to tell you that things are going to turn around. That being said, I don't think this team is as bad as what they put on tape on Friday night. Now, you got to play better. That's the bottom line. And there's some flaws with this team that I just don't really see how they're going to get solved. I'm not sure how they can do a better job stopping the run. I think Andy Avalos needs to commit more bodies to the box. But other than that, it's just about gap integrity and being able to reestablish line of scrimmage and run fits and all those things just seem to be a big struggle for the personnel they have on the field right now. Offensively, I feel like they can play better than they did on Friday, but so much of it, again, goes back to when you have a lack of balance, there's a decent chance that you're going to have some clunkers like that. But turning our attention to next week, they're playing Utah. And to be quite honest, I feel like just about every other game on the schedule, I wouldn't say I'm optimistic about it, but I see a path for TCU to win. Like Texas Tech is off to a great start. Their defense hasn't been outstanding, so I think there's a way that TCU could outscore them, right? Baylor, Oklahoma State have struggled. Arizona doesn't look as good as they have in the past. Cincinnati on the road is going to be tough, but I feel like that's a game where if TCU plays at their best, they can win. I'm struggling to see a path against Utah right now. This Utah team is very good. Now, they're actually coming off a loss to Arizona themselves, and they play Arizona State this weekend, and that'll be, interesting ball game. But the big news for the Utes is that on this Friday night game against Arizona State, they're getting their starting quarterback back. Cam Rising injured his finger in the win against Baylor in the second game of the season. He hasn't been available since. They've been playing it very close to the vest. I kind of figured he would be available by the time the TCU game rolled around, just because, if it's an injury to the throwing hand, that's a problem. But it's also been 4 or 5 weeks now by the time he would have taken the field to play TCU. But it's official. He's going to play against Arizona State. So barring, re-aggravating that injury tonight or something else that goes wrong, he'll be your starter when TCU plays Utah in place of Isaac Wilson. And that's a big deal because Isaac Wilson has looked like a backup quarterback so far. He's thrown for 830 yards, 55% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's been sacked 8 times. So you see a guy that doesn't have, the pocket presence that you would want, that's turning the ball over. Now, the problem is TCU hasn't really forced turnovers. But Cam Rising being available is a big deal because this is a Utah team. They hang their hat on their defense and their physicality. And they've been really good on defense this year. They shut out Southern Utah. Baylor scored 12 points. Utah State scored 21 points. Oklahoma State 19. Arizona scored 10. They have really shut down everybody they played so far. The most points they've given up this year. Arizona scored 23. Arizona beat them 23-10. But that's the most points they've given up all year long, is those 23 points to Arizona. So that defense has been very salty. And even though their offense is not the strength of their team, having Rising back, someone who's going to take care of the ball, who's a veteran, who understands, how this works and is going to play effectively is a big deal. The other thing they do very well that's going to be a challenge for this TCU defense is they run the ball. They're averaging about 5 yards a carry. Micah Bernard is their leading rusher, 547 yards on 82 carries. They've been able to move the ball with their offensive line and on the ground game like they typically have. I said this, I guess it was after the Houston game. It feels like they're kind of everything that TCU is not right now. They're tough, they're physical, they're consistent. You know what you're going to get from them week in and week out. So this is going to be a tough ball game on the road in Salt Lake City. Now listen, it's college football. Crazy things happen all the time. I'm not totally ruling out an upset victory, but I think it's going to be a huge uphill battle. And I wouldn't pick them today. I don't expect to pick them when the game rolls around next Saturday night. We'll talk to JT from Locked On Utes coming up next week. And I'll be interested to see how they fare against Arizona State, which is not a great team, but, Kenny Dillingham seems to have them moving in the right direction. Is there any rust for Cam Rising? But again, the offense is a huge factor, but really defensively is where they shine. And that's what they're going to build this team around. I will say this. We've talked a lot this week about Sonny Dykes being on the hot seat, his coaching staff kind of teetering. I mean, I don't really feel like – I think Kendall Browse has done a good job this year. Andy Avalos, it's been a struggle, but it's also year one. There's a lot of talk about the coordinators. I get it. Everybody needs to do a better job. However, I'm not even really sure. Like, talking about the coordinator's job status at this point is kind of a moot point to me because I feel like Sonny is coaching for his job over the next 6 games. So if he's gone, the coordinators will be gone. If he stays, then I don't think they'll make any major moves. Maybe they'll shuffle around some position coaches, but you're not going to fire your DC after 1 year. And it seems like he's personally pretty pleased with what Kendall has brought to the table over the past 2 years. The lack of run game, which is a major issue, they've got to get fixed. But you have a bye week here. You have some extra time to prepare. And I sort of downplayed this, or I guess I didn't talk about it enough. I remember thinking about it during the week in the lead up to the SMU game, because SMU had played on a Friday night. Then they had the bye week between the BYU loss and the game against TCU. And so they established some things. They figured out who their quarterback was. They benched Preston Stone. They moved on to Kevin Jennings. They had a chance to watch TCU play against UCF. Also helps that Rhett Lashley is good friends with Gus Malzahn, and I would think that they had some conversations about, okay, here's what you need to do against this team. And they ran the ball at will, and they had a good game plan. TCU also shot themselves in the foot repeatedly in that game, but you could tell they were prepared, they were focused, and they were ready. That has been the biggest issue, I would say, over the past year and a half with these TCU teams. There's an undercurrent as well of just sloppy play, losing the turnover battle. They're one of the worst teams in the nation in turnover margin. They don't force turnovers. They're giving the ball away. They've got to find a way to clean that up. And it's hard to quantify this. I would say the biggest disturbing theme to me is just the idea that for whatever reason, they don't look ready to play. They come out of the gate slow. They start slow. And there's been a number of games over the last year plus where Sonny's been like, well, the other team was just more excited to get out there and mix it up and play football, which is such a dumbfounding thing. Like, I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate the accountability. But at a certain point, the honesty and accountability, it's wonderful, but you got to figure out something that fixes it. Like, you keep making mistakes. Like, at my job, I work for a mortgage company. I'm helping people get into homes, right? I make a mistake. I can own up to it. But if eventually I'm preventing my clients from closing on time, if I'm holding up transactions, if I'm messing with people's lives in that way, there's going to be a huge problem, right? Like, at a certain point, the accountability and all the goodwill and kind of good vibes that come with that, the flip side is, okay, I just need you to fix it. Like, I appreciate that you understand what the problem is and that you're working to solve it, but you got to find a way to fix it. So with an extra week to get ready, are there any wrinkles that you can throw out there schematically? Is there anything that you can show personnel wise that's different, that's unique, that throws Utah off? Because if you just keep doing what you've been doing on film for the past 6 weeks, I don't really think you have much of a chance here. Are there any innovative things you can do in the run game to give your offensive line some more help and allow your running backs to, run the ball better, stay on schedule on offense, put yourself in second and third downs that are more manageable, and not put so much pressure on Josh Hoover to win the game with his arm? Is there a way that you can get out to a good start with some scripted drives early so that you're not playing catch up all night, and maybe those turnovers aren't as frequent because you're not coaching a team and you don't have a team out there that's pressing so much? And you know what? Players have to make plays too. That's a huge part of it. Because all the moments in that Friday night game when TCU would kind of get out there and make something happen, the defense would give up a score, right? Like they got it to 14-6. Defense gives up a long drive that ends up in a field goal. Offense goes 3 and out. Houston scores on a long quarterback draw. They get 24-6 lead into halftime. They finally cut it to 24-12. They get the ball. It's like, all right, let's go. They on a first down pass, they get at least 9 yards. Looks like J.P. Richardson's going to cross the sticks and move the chains. And he's just holding the ball loosely. He's fighting for extra yards. Ball gets punched out. Huge momentum shift. And in some ways, that was your ball game. They cut it to a one-possession game late and at least gave the defense the opportunity. Okay, can you get a stop? If you get a stop, we're down 8. We get the ball. We get a chance to go down and score again, maybe get a 2-point conversion and win the game. And they just could not find a way to get off the field. So players got to make those plays too. But I want to talk more about coaching and just kind of where we're at here in a minute. This is Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We got a new sponsor with us. Appreciate them joining us. It's ZBiotics. ZBiotics. It's a pre-alcoholic probiotic drink that's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by a PhD scientist to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. This byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the day. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel better tomorrow. So if you've never used it before, here's how you use it. Step 1, you drink that pre-alcohol probiotic to start your night. For the best results, make the pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly, pace yourself well, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. And then step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on a new day. Go to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LockedOnCollege at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. ZBiotics, new sponsor here. We appreciate them. Again, ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use that promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off your first order. Also, shout out to our friends at FanDuel who have been rolling with us for a long time. Go to FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app today. One $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets. One $5 bet, $200 in bonus bets. Major League Baseball playoffs going on right now. NBA preseason's in full swing. That's not far away. NFL and college football, of course, they're going on at the moment too. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. Download it today or go to their website. One $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets. Appreciate FanDuel and their great sponsorship. So continuing on this discussion, I think this would go a long way. If you can find, obviously you found a way to win, that's huge because that's one that you weren't expecting. Even I think if TCU was rolling this 4-2, right? Like if they found a way to beat Houston, they would be underdogs going into this ballgame. But for Sonny Dykes and for the staff, which has been much maligned lately, and Matt talked about this on our show Tuesday. He was like, there's a few different ways that coaches can be effective in college football or that can present advantages for their team. So there's dudes that are just great X's and O's guys, right? Like very good at breaking down, okay, here's what this team does well. Here's what we're going to take away. Here's some things that we're going to do that they're not expecting. And even if they are expecting it, like we can execute it at a level that's high enough that it's tough to stop. There's coaches that are really good at identifying talent and developing players. So, hey, maybe you don't have a top 10 recruiting class, top 15 recruiting class, but they're very good at saying, okay, this is a good football player. They're not getting noticed because of reasons X, Y, Z, but I think they fit my system. I can get them integrated in the program. We can develop them, get them in strength and conditioning, get them to a place where physically they're more formidable and they understand what we do, fit our scheme. So when they're juniors and seniors, they're taking the mantle and they're running with it, right? And then there's talent acquisition guys that their main job or the main thing that they're good at, that they excel at, is bringing in great players. And if you bring in enough of those, even if you don't check all the other boxes or some of the other boxes, you can still be successful. And Matt's question was, at the moment, does Sonny fit into any of those molds? And it's hard to point to one. I think he's raised TCU's recruiting ceiling somewhat, but not as much as we would expect. And I think if I was, after year one, if I was going to pinpoint something that I thought he was really good at, it was just helping the team kind of relax, empowering them to go play at a high level and sort of staying out of the way, taking some of the pressure off. And I mean, that's a skill. Like that's a way to lead, is to make sure everybody knows what they're doing, allow them to do it at a high level. And I think the problem is Sonny sometimes doesn't step in enough. I was talking with Paul Catalina this week on 365 Sports, and he likened the Sonny Dykes era so far to Wade Phillips with the Cowboys. So Bill Parcells was there before Wade, and that was a huge deal, right? Because Jerry's not exactly somebody who likes to hand over the reins to anyone, and Bill was a big personality and knew football very well, wasn't really into the front office telling him what to do. And he turned that thing around after the Dave Campo years. You know, he got them to the playoffs with Quincy Carter one season, then Romo takes over and he got them the playoffs there. They flamed out in the playoffs a few times, and eventually his kind of really hard-nosed, demanding style wore on that team, and they started to tune him out. And so they parted ways with him. They bring in Wade Phillips, who was a player's coach and has been a great defensive coordinator for a long time. Has had some success as a head coach. And he comes in and he's much more like, hey, do what you need to do. You know, he's a lot more hands-off in that way. And the team responded really well in the first couple of years. But then eventually they kind of drowned his voice out too. And it feels like that veteran group in year one that he found a way to get the most out of. And I'm getting him credit for that. Like, we can sit here and say, oh, those were Gary's players. Well, Gary couldn't get them to play. Like, they were his players. He did a great job identifying that talent. And Quentin Johnston, I mean, he's 4-star wide receiver. He flipped it from Texas. Max Duggan was a highly recruited guy. Wasn't getting attention from everybody. They found him. Like, we can go down the list. There were really good players on the football team. They were 5-7 in 2021. They were 6-4 in 2020. They were 5-7 the year before that, right? A change needed to happen. And Sonny stepped in the right time and got that done. But the flip side of that is now it looks like a team that's undisciplined, that doesn't have a great feel for what their identity is, or doesn't really have an identity, and they're struggling to make things happen. And so now that you've had some extra time to prepare for this ball game, can you show some wrinkles schematically that confuse Utah? Because one thing that's been killing me this year especially, they said it after the Stanford game. He said it after the Long Island game. Josh Hoover mentioned it after this ball game. But it's like every week this coaching staff is taken aback and surprised by what teams are throwing at them. They're saying, well, they're doing things like our offense struggled early because defensively they were throwing some fronts at us and doing some, disguise coverage that we hadn't seen before on film. Offensively, they were running some things that we didn't see on film. Well, then adjust. Like, that's your job. That's the whole thing. That's coaching. And I would love to, if I know some former players watch this and listen to this, I would love to hear from you. If I'm missing something, let me know. Correct me. But I didn't play football at a high level, but I said this, I think in the post-game show, or maybe it was on Monday. The days have kind of run together. I remember, in high school, like we had scout team work, like we had the cards. Coaches would drop the plays that they saw on film from the opposing team. The scout team would run a lot of those base plays. They're trying to give you a look, right? They're trying to give the starting defense, starting offense, an idea of what they're going to see on Friday or Saturday. But then you get out in the game, and it's not exactly like it is on the cards, because maybe they've changed their alignment a little bit, or they're doing some different things, or they're running some plays that they haven't shown a lot on film because they're installing the offense. Bottom line is, as a coaching staff, in the middle of the game, and not just at halftime. Halftime's a good time to do it too. But during the game, like, you have to meet with your players and be like, okay, what are you seeing? They're doing this. We have to adjust this way. And why does it feel like that TCU's never surprising anybody with what they're doing? I haven't heard from opposing coaches, man, they're just doing a lot of things differently than what we expected. Well, it's a perfect week to do that with the extra time to prepare. And we'll have coverage of it all week long, starting on Monday. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. If you've ever wondered about investing, Robinhood is a place to go. Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5 APR on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of high net worth for any net worth. Those generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. So in yesterday's episode, I talked with Ray Cartwright he's actually freelancing now. He still does some work for Frogs Today, but mainly he just does this independently. He does a great job covering TCU soccer and TCU volleyball. So TCU soccer, they won 3-1 against West Virginia. And because of a draw between Colorado and Texas Tech, the Frogs are now tied for first place. Eric Bell doing a really good job. Young team with a lot of talent. Seems like they're starting to kind of find their stride and do some things that are special. So they're moving towards the postseason. TCU volleyball, unfortunately, they lost. They got swept in straight sets by Utah. So they're 3-2 in conference play now. Now, I did see Ray mention that Melanie Parra and some other ladies on the team were dealing with stomach bug. So that's unfortunate. Weren't at full strength last night, but still, that was a big match, and they couldn't find a way to even come up with a set against the Ute. So they'll have to rebound and try to get going. But Jason Williams has done a really great job turning that thing around as well. So sports in the fall, they're both playing at a high level. I mentioned on Wednesday, who are some young players that you want to see out there over the next few weeks? Jack Daddy Slim says, yes, let's jumpstart this team. I don't care how we do it. It's the coach's job to figure it out. He wants to let Haas cook. Yeah, I'd like to see Haas get out there and play some more. I don't know exactly how many snaps, if it's only in the run game, but something, get him more involved. Someone said Jonathan Bax. I'm for it. Hey, put some more athletic players on the edge. Allow them to rush the passer. Now, part of that is you got to stop the run game too, but allow these guys to get up the field and go. Byron asked, what happened to the big offensive lineman that entered the portal? So that's Bubba Ramsey Brooks that you're talking about. And I'm not actually sure where he landed. He entered the portal in the spring. He was from Oak Cliff High School. He was kind of a project from the start, and I guess it just didn't work out for him. He didn't see the field through the first couple seasons, but I'm not sure where he ended up. I know he entered the portal, and unfortunate that he couldn't get to the field at TCU, but he was an interesting prospect just with his sheer size for sure. So we'll be back on Monday. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Appreciate you guys. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform.